Have you ever noticed how the silence feels heavier when you're expecting a sound? Most people think of silence as peace, but for those of us who live in old houses, it's more like a predator. We need a metronome, something to keep the dead air of the night from closing in. For me, that anchor was an heirloom pendulum clock. It sat in the corner of my bedroom, a tall, dark-stained oak tower that didn't just tell time. It filled the room with a wooden, heartbeat-like thrum. You didn't just hear the ticking, you felt it through the floorboards. It was a constant reminder that the world was still moving, that time hadn't simply stopped. I told myself that as long as that pendulum swung, the shadows in the corner were just shadows. There's an old theory about the rule of three. It suggests that if a mechanical clock stops for no reason, time isn't pausing. It's simply waiting for something else to fill the gap. I never put much stock in it back then. I just liked the sound. It made the room feel occupied. It made me feel safe. But that's the thing about safety. It only takes a fraction of a second for the rhythm to break. And once it does, you realize just how loud the silence can actually be. I woke up at precisely 3:03 a.m. I didn't need to look at the clock to know the time. I could feel the vacuum. The air felt viscous, like I was suddenly underwater, and the rhythmic thrum that had been my heartbeat for years was gone. The pendulum had stopped mid-swing. The silence wasn't empty, it was heavy. I lay there, paralyzed by a sudden spike in my nervous system. My skin began to prickle, and the room began to smell faintly of old copper and ozone, like the air right before a lightning strike. Then I remembered that forum post, Rules for the Void. Staring into the dark, the words came back with terrifying clarity. When the clock stops, your breathing is no longer your own. I tried to take a breath, but the sound felt distant, as if it were coming from the other side of the room. And then I heard it. An echo. A soft, wet inhalation that followed mine by a fraction of a second. It wasn't my lungs making that sound. My jaw started to shiver, my teeth clicking together with a metallic frequency that seemed to be the only sound left in the world. I realized then that I wasn't just in my bedroom anymore. I was in a space where the rules of physics had been replaced by something much older. That's when I felt the weight. It wasn't a sudden drop, but a slow, agonizing depression of the mattress at the foot of the bed. It felt like something dense, like wet leather, was sliding its mass onto the frame. I kept my eyes fused shut. That was the first rule. Never look into the void, because the void is looking for a way in. The entity shifted with a sickening, sliding sound, moving up the side of the bed. It began to mimic my breathing again. But this time it was intentionally out of sync, creating a nauseating double thump. It was testing me. Then came the first false tick, a sharp, rhythmic tapping on my bedside table. Click, click, click. It sounded exactly like the clock, but it was coming from a fingernail hitting the wood. It was trying to trick me into thinking the time had returned. But the air inches above my face began to hum with a static electric field, making the fine hairs on my arms stand upright. I could smell stagnant well water now, a cloying organic rot that shouldn't have been there. And then a whisper. It sounded like my own name, but spoken backward. A garbled string of phonetics poured directly into my ear canal. The weight settled directly onto my chest. It was suffocating. Every time I tried to breathe, the thing above me would mimic the struggle with a wet, clicking sound like two pieces of raw meat being slapped together. This was the final rule. The entity will provide two perfect imitations of the clock. Only the third tick is real. If you open your eyes on the first or second, you are the new vessel. My eyelids felt like they were being pried open by invisible hooks. I felt a cold, wet probe of air, almost like a finger, hovering just a millimeter from my eye. Click. The second false tick echoed. It was thunderous, a bone-shaking vibration that sounded like the pendulum had finally released. My body screamed at me to open my eyes, but I waited. The silence that followed was absolute. I was floating in a lightless abyss with nothing but this rotting weight on my ribs. I counted my own heartbeat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 seconds of impossible silence. And then, thump. A deep wooden resonance vibrated through the floorboards. The true third tick. The weight on my chest vanished so instantly it left me gasping for air. When the sun finally flooded the room, everything looked normal. The clock was ticking away, its brass pendulum catching the light. But the sound was different. It didn't have that dry wooden thrum anymore. It had a wet, fleshy undertone, a soft skelch at the end of every second. I walked over and looked at the glass. There, on the inside of the casing, was a single greasy smudge the shape of a long, distorted finger pressed against the wood. There's a theory that the entity doesn't leave, it just waits for an invitation to observe the world through your eyes. It makes me wonder, did I blink during those 6 seconds of silence? Did I let it in? I haven't slept in that room since, but tonight, when you turn off your lights, I want you to do something. Listen to your clock, count the ticks. If the rhythm pauses for even a fraction of a second, don't move. Don't breathe, and whatever you do, don't open your eyes until you're absolutely sure the third tick is real. Because if you don't, something else might be looking through your eyes tomorrow morning.